Well, hello there. Welcome to 2021 and the very first episode of Needlepoint TV for this year. I'm delighted to be here with you. And today's video, I'm going to share with you a little bit about how to get yourself set up for success with your needlepoint hobby this year. So, one of my all-time favorite ways to expand my stitch repertoire, which is what I call the number of stitches that I know or that I use on a regular basis, is to actually practice those new stitches that I've not ever tried before, or stitches that I've maybe used, but it's been a long time. And I do that by doing a doodle canvas, by creating a doodle canvas. And when I say doodle, I literally mean doodle, like you doodle on a piece of paper when you draw. Well, what I do is I create a doodle canvas. And let me share with you one that I created for one of our thread ventures that we had in the past. So this is a doodle canvas. You can see that there are little boxes drawn on the piece of canvas, and they're each 1.5 inches square. And this is an 8x8 piece of needlepoint canvas. It's 18 mesh canvas because I tend to stitch on 18 mesh more than I do 13. And so what I always like to do is make sure that if I'm auditioning stitches for a project, I make sure that my doodle canvas is the same size mesh as the canvas that I'm going to be working on for my project. So if my canvas is a painted canvas on 18 count, then I'm going to be working my doodle canvas on 18 count as well. And the reason I do that is that it makes it easier for me to make that transition or that translation over from my doodle canvas to my project. So this is an 8x8 piece of canvas, and it's mounted on mini stretcher bars. These are 1/2 inch stretcher bars, and you can see they make a little box. So that's the frame. This is a stretcher bar frame for those of you who are relatively new to needlepoint, or if you've never worked on a frame before. There are other kinds too, but this is the best, and to me, the best and the easiest to use when you're doing a little project like this. So I also have the edges of the canvas taped, and that's to keep my threads from snagging on the rough edges of the canvas, because needlepoint canvas is a very stiff fabric, and if you have little rough edges, it will catch your thread, especially if you're working with silk. So I do bind my edges of my canvas with tape. Artist tape is the best thing to use. I actually have this for my business. It's imprinted. You can see it. If I get up close, it says Serendipity Needleworks, but obviously you don't have to have that. Just artist tape works very well. And I've got the canvas attached to the frame with tacks. Now, I really would recommend that if you're doing a project on stretcher bars like this or on a stretcher frame like this, if you're working on your actual project, I would have my tacks placed more closely together. So each one of these there would be at least one tack in between each one of these that you see here, possibly two. Yeah, I might be able to get two in there. And the reason I would do that is because I would want to make sure that the surface of the canvas was very taut, because that makes your stitches look much prettier, and it's easier to get things to lay smoothly if the surface of the canvas is very tight or taut. So this is just a doodle canvas though, and I just have the tacks spaced out. I still have several, but I don't have as many as I would if I were using, if I were working on a project. So on 18 mesh canvas, I typically use either a size 22 needle or a 24 needle, but both of those would be tapestry needles. Tapestry needles are what you're going to want to use when you're working on a needlepoint canvas, unless you're using something like silk ribbon. And in that case, you would use a different kind of needle. But for your standard stitches and your standard threads, you would use a tapestry needle. The 24 is going to be the one that I'm going to gravitate toward for 18 count, particularly if I'm working with stranded silk or stranded cotton. And I might use a 22 if I needed to open up the canvas threads a little bit more so that a thicker thread could pass through more easily. So the purpose of using a larger needle is to open up those canvas threads, because needlepoint canvas is an open grid even weave fabric, and so you want to be able to get your needle and thread to pass through the holes that are created, in that open grid. You want your thread to pass through with the least amount of resistance, because the more the thread rubs against the canvas threads on the canvas, the more likely it is to fray and become damaged. So if you use a little bit bigger needle, it'll open those up a little bit more and make your threads it helps keep them intact, and they look fresher, and your stitches look prettier. So that is what I'm going to be doing actually over the course of this year. Is I'm going to be learning a whole bunch of new stitches. Of course, I have my tried and true, and I get stuck in a rut and use the same ones over and over, and I'm sure you may have found yourself doing the same thing. So I've decided that I'm going to commit this year to spending at least 20 minutes every day. And it could be an average. I know there are several people who work full time outside of their home, and they don't have time to sit down for 20 minutes every day. But I'm going to be committing 20 minutes every day to learning new stitches. And it may be that I don't get but one done a day, but I am going to be doing that. And my goal is to get, I haven't even set a number, but my goal is to get quite a few new stitches under my belt so that I can use those on projects. And I hope that you'll join me in that endeavor. If you would like to participate in that, we're calling it, last year we did our Stitch 20 in 20, which was where I encouraged everyone to stitch 20 minutes a day. Try to get 20 minutes a day in for 5 days a week. Of course, we had several people who did that. And some people got more than that done. And so this year we're going to go for 21, stitch for 21 minutes in 2021. And of course, that can be on anything you want. Or if you want to follow along with me, I'm going to, again, commit to learning new stitches this year. So I'll be sharing some of those things over on our blog. If you would like to get information on how to set your own Doodle Canvas up and to create your own stitch reference notebook, which let me show you this really quickly. This is the stitch reference notebook sheet from a workshop that I did last year in January. So you can see that it's got all kinds of basic information. Let me turn around so the light's not glaring. It has all kinds of information about the stitch, and then there's actually a little space for you to put your stitched sample in. It's in a plastic sheet protector like those you can get from Office Depot. And you can create your very own stitch reference notebook. I keep my things organized alphabetically. It's easier for me to do it that way, to keep up with all the stitches that I have. But you can do it whatever works best for you. You can organize however works best for the way you think or the way you use your reference tools. But this is a terrific way to keep an ongoing, ever-growing reference notebook so that you can go back and look at what the stitch actually looks like stitched up. There's a true difference between seeing a photograph and seeing the real sample. In addition to, there's a real difference between looking at a diagram and actually practicing the stitch. So I would highly encourage you to give it a try. And I do have a little freebie that I'm going to share with you. Now let me pop it up over here so that you can go to that URL and it'll pull up a blog post for you that's all about setting up a stitch reference notebook. And then there's a freebie that you can download that is actually a sheet like this that you can use to attach your stitch samples to. And it also includes instructions on how to set up a Doodle Canvas for yourself. So all there for you, just free for the taking. And like I said, I highly encourage you to do that because there's no time like the present to learn something new. The start of a new year is always a terrific time to commit to learning something new and to bettering yourself and to just expanding your needlepoint skills and becoming a more confident and more competent stitcher. So I'm ever so grateful that you joined me here. One thing I want to remind you about is that if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, just click that little red button down below, and then that way you'll get notifications in the future when there are new episodes uploaded. And also, we do have a weekly email that goes out every Tuesday. You can also sign up for that down below. There's a link for that down below because I do include little extras, I guess you could call them. I call them lagniappe, and it's just little extra special things that I include only for my weekly subscribers. So thanks for being here with me today. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Until then, happy stitching. Bye for now.